we heard your story and what that journey looked like, to the mom that maybe is sitting in fresh loss after loss of her own child and doesn't know how they're going to get through the day. Like, what words of encouragement do you think you could give someone that, is sitting in their fresh loss, or maybe looks at you and said, I could never do that, like, put yourself back in that shoe. Like, what would you say to someone?
So I thought this would be I've been constantly trying to find ways to keep his legacy alive and honor him, speak about him. And so
I remember that as probably a highlight for me, just in terms of like seeing you go from this beautiful person just coming to our events to being active to being like actually like a support for someone else.
Yeah.
So, hey, Gloves for Grief community. It's me, Terra, president and co-founder of Gloves for Grief. We're excited to launch our second episode of our podcast for Gloves for Grief. And today we're bringing in none other than our wonderful, lovely, she's probably going to slap me over here, Marie Brandon. She's actually, well, there's so many ways to describe her, but I would just say that she's got like a heartbeat and a perfect example of like what we hope our programming can do. Grieving mama, and has been now a part of our board, as well as helping us to launch our blog. And then, in her day job, her normal life, does a lot of amazing things as an RN, and she'll tell you a little bit about it. So Marie, I'd love for you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, about, what you do, and a little bit about who you are.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'd love to come and chat with you. And I started off basically a little bit about me. I am originally from Ohio, small little town, born and raised there. And then I went to high school and college in Colorado, graduated from Colorado State. And then I moved out here to Southern California in 1995. So I'm not going to say how old I am, but if you're good at math, you can figure that out. And so I've been out here since then. And over the past however many years it's been, I have been married, divorced. I had 3 children. I am a neonatal ICU nurse of 20 years now. I am a One Legacy ambassador. As Terra said, I have started writing for our Gloves for Grief blog called The Journey. And I also got my certified grief educator, and Michelle and I are going to be launching our online grief support group. So yeah, a lot of things. A lot of things have been going on in my life.
Yes. I think I met my match in terms of people that are just about as busy as I am.
Trying to keep busy. I've been off of work because of surgery, so that's afforded me a lot of time to. I wasn't super ready after my loss to delve in and do all this, but over the past few months, it's really kind of aligned perfectly, where it's filled some of my downtime and kept me busy and opened a lot of new doors. And I think it's been really exciting. Yeah, really exciting to carry this journey. So I first met Terra. Actually, we didn't even meet that day, but my son actually passed away on April 30th of 2023. And I met Terra about 2 weeks later, Saddleback Church in Lake Forest. That's been our home church for my girls and I, since the early 2000s. And my oldest daughter wanted to go to an event there, and it was for bereaved mothers, any woman who was grieving, actually, belladonna. And it was the weekend of Mother's Day, and that was 2 weeks after Jacob had passed. And so I was not really in the headspace. I think a lot of us who have suffered an immense loss are in that brain fog. And we had just gotten through his funeral, just had my youngest daughter's 16th birthday, and it was a lot. But my oldest daughter really wanted to go, and so I wanted to be supportive, and I'm glad I did, because I don't know that we would have ever connected if I hadn't been taken there. So
I don't know if I had realized just that it was so fresh.
It was super fresh.
Like, I don't even think I came out of my house after my loss after 2 weeks. I just
yeah.
That's pretty brave,
And like I said, I owe it to my daughter Emma, because it was hard enough just to get out of the house to go to do the funeral preparations, and I'm sure you understand that
Yeah.
doing all of those things, and um, but you have two other daughters that still need you,
Yeah.
and you know that you have a child who still needs you, and you need to show up for that child. So so we went, and I don't remember a lot. I know that there were other people that spoke, and it was led by Kay Warren, and I remember her speaking. But and our losses are different, as far as we both have the loss of a son,
Mhm.
um, but how we lost them, the ages that we lost them, vastly different. But just something about your story, like I just connected to it. And then the whole aspect of the physical, like I've always been an active person. And just I've always struggled with, with mental health, like a lot of people do. And something that always helps me is physical exercise. It gets me out of my head. It's the only time I feel like my brain actually completely stops working is when I'm working out. And so when I heard about, the boxing and the grief and everything combined, I thought this could be something really great. So I grabbed the pamphlets and kind of stuffed them away and really didn't think about much after that. And so then, funny story is we have a mutual friend, Lisa,
Mhm.
and
My neighbor. Hi, Lisa.
hi, Lisa. And our oldest daughters actually grew up together playing soccer in Ladera. And so I saw her post from your September's, I don't know what days, sometime in September, you had like a end of summer event at a park. And I remember I commented, and I was like, "Oh, I remember this is like similar to something I saw." I didn't know it was the same thing at first. And I'm like, "I really would have liked to have been there. This would have been nice." And so Lisa's like, "Oh, of course, like I'll let you know." And immediately Terra messaged and like, "Follow us on, our website, and we'll list all the things and events." And you told me about one that was coming up, and then I couldn't go to that because it was my dad's 80th birthday. So we went back to Colorado. But just the fact that you reached out like that, um, it just there's something about like having, like we've learned, is you need to have your grief witnessed.
Mhm.
And so to see that it meant something, that you like were immediate to be like, "Hey, I got you." You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
anyways, so that's kind of how it came about. And then the first event I was able to go to was the Veterans Day event in November of that year. And it just kind of all felt like kismet, like I was meant to go there. My son was a Marine. So I took my two girls and I was like, "This payback time. I went to this for you. So you're going to go to this for me." And so we went to our first event. It was at Saddleback. It was outside. It was beautiful. And just, I left feeling just lighter. Just, yeah. And I just knew that I had found some place that understood. I love my friends, my family, even my girls. But if you haven't suffered this kind of loss, you just, as well-meaning as you are, you just don't get it. And
Yeah.
so people there, they really got it. And you didn't have to be like on guard about crying. Like I know I cried when I was boxing. There was just such a physical release
Mhm.
from that. And
What
yeah.
was it like that first event? For those that are watching that maybe haven't been, or maybe they've been thinking about going and, they're not sure about it. Maybe they
Mhm.
don't know anyone. What was it like though to remind me, was it both girls or was it Emma?
It was both girls.
Okay.
Both
Like
girls came with me.
what was that like for them,
Um,
for you guys to do that together? Because I
it
think that's one
was
of the things that people need to know is that we actually invite families of
families.
all
Yeah,
ages.
all ages of kids. I think my oldest daughter, Emma, appreciated it more than my younger. But I love Izzy for going and supporting me. Um, it was it was comfort, because even though I left feeling better, when I got there, I had a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, you don't know what to expect. Even though I had seen videos and pictures and heard you talk about it, going there and experiencing it, especially, it's hard. Like when you are in, for me, I shouldn't generalize, but for me, being in that grief, I felt like I didn't want to be around other people.
Yeah.
It was hard. Things like going to the grocery store, like very triggering, just being around crowds. And so I was really scared. I'm like, I'm going to get there. And it was like, but it wasn't like that. Like it was outside. It was a beautiful day. It was fresh air. And I didn't know because I had remembered meeting or hearing you speak and seeing videos, but I didn't remember Ashley. And then she actually came up to me when we were boxing and she asked who I was punching for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, who is this person talking to me right now? I don't know who she is. And she asked me a little bit about my story. And I don't know if she'll remember having done that now almost 2 years later, but it once again, it was that hand that like I see you, I see what you're going through. And so my girls have been, to a few, either in the volunteer aspect or to actually punch. And actually at our 2-year event that we just had, Emma and my niece Caitlin came and got a lot out of it, so much out of it. And I just, I don't know. I think if you can come to it and you're worried of what you're going to experience that you can't handle it, you don't even have to box.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like you stand at the sidelines, you can kind of look and see, but everybody's so friendly. I've been to, I've been to a lot of events. I've been to a lot of
Yeah.
events, either to participate or, when I'm got a bum foot, just to volunteer and just to be there and to help. But I feel like I've never come across anybody negative, anything like that. It's just
Yeah.
such
It's
a
just such a
warm,
supportive
supportive area,
space.
exactly.
So from that first event, that you came and like not to fast forward because I know there's a lot more to cover the story. Like how at what point in your own grief journey were you feeling like you were ready to start, you know, either being more involved with Gloves for Grief, and we're going to talk about One Legacy, like what did that process look like for you from like being in that fresh fog grief to
Well,
actually starting to be, you know,
yeah, to actually wanting to be around other people. It's kind of, I, I feel like some of it um, was out of my hands in a way. I feel like I was kind of directed in different areas, and some of it just came across at the right time. I Being in that fog, I still find myself sometimes in that fog. It's not quite as heavy as it was that first year. It'll be 2 years next month, or actually 2 months from now. Um, but I can't really pinpoint an exact time that was like, okay, let's do it. I went to one event and then I went to another, and I liked kind of like having that to look forward to and get myself be like, okay, I can lay in bed and I can be lazy and sit on the couch all these days because I'm going to go do this on Saturday.
yeah.
And then I have all week to recover. So it was nice knowing that like I didn't have to do it every day. It was like, okay, I can do this.
You could work
And
yourself up to
and
it.
I knew from history that mental health mine was dependent on physical exercise. So that combined with how I felt when I left the first time, I was like, okay, we're gonna do this again. And every time I went, it was better and better. And then I was like, okay, I would see, that you guys weren't getting a lot of help with volunteers. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay. So then I started volunteering, and it just kind of snowballed from there to there. And I don't there's still days where I'm like, oh, this was a lot. Like
Yeah.
the last, our 2-year anniversary, we had our 2-year event, and that was amazing and felt so fulfilled, even though I wasn't able to box. Got so much out of that day. And then the following week, there was a lot. I had my One Legacy, and I had another event that I went to with Emma. And so I don't know that there's technically a pinpoint time, like I said.
Well, I feel like that probably is like a loaded question because I feel like I saw it for you. Obviously, you were involved a lot along the way
Hmm.
and volunteering. I think sometimes the events when we put them on, like our big formal events, it really is a true labor of love. It feels like, the amount it's hours to set up and tear down and box trucks
Yeah.
but I actually specifically remember this moment and it's like very vivid in my mind when we did that event up in Shepherd's
Mhm.
church,
Oh, I know
and
exactly what one you're talking
it
about.
was I remember, I mean, you had been coming and you've been volunteering,
Mhm,
you weren't on the board yet necessarily, but I remember there was a moment, and we had talked to a mom that week. She had called
mhm.
us, and it was very fresh. It was almost kind of a
Yeah.
crisis situation where she was just in distress, as anyone is, you know. And I remember Angel had spent hours that week talking to her, and we told her about the event, but we just said, there's don't feel any pressure. You have to come on your own timing. And I think that's really important,
Mhm,
is no one can tell you what timing that will be. And you
mhm.
don't know when you're ready. And sometimes you need it and you don't even know it. So it's kind of one of those fine things. Sometimes you have to like to try and push your boundaries. But I remember this woman, she actually came to the event, and I
Mhm.
mean, we're talking like weeks or so after her loss. And I was completely shocked because I was like, I knew it was probably too early for her, but I remember, just watching the emotion. I knew that she was so fragile at that moment, the event. And then at the end, when we were kind of going around talking about our losses, and you shared about Jacob, and then she was talking about her son. I remember, like, the second that that circle ended, like, she ran to you
Yeah.
like it was like a sprint. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought for a minute she might have knocked you over.
No,
No,
I
but
no.
it was, and I
I
make light
remember
of
that.
that, but honestly, it was this, like, such a beautiful moment. It made me very emotional because I just, here you have one grieving mother that's still in her grief journey, and we will be on that journey for life, and you're still in your fresh loss,
Mhm,
and we've got someone that's so fresh in her own journey, and it's
mhm.
just like moment of you comforting her. And I was just like, that was like a really big affirmation for me. And to see that even if you didn't necessarily pinpoint when you were ready, you were already
I
doing
think I
that.
think you just pinpointed it for me.
It's like you were
Yeah.
there, and I watched that, and I was like, whoa. There's nothing more beautiful than
Yeah.
that, to be able to see people find connection, community, people that get it, that
Mhm,
understand. It's like, who better to sit with a grieving mother than a grieving mother,
mhm.
that understands that pain, the fresh loss. So I remember that it's probably a highlight for me, just in terms of like seeing you go from this beautiful person just coming to our events to being active to being like actually like a support for someone else.
Yeah.
So now you're board member, you're helping us relaunch our blog. Can you tell us a little bit about our One Legacy and what you're doing with that
Sure.
organization?
So One Legacy I got involved with, so my son was a registered organ donor, as am I, and when he had his accident, they approached me in the hospital, and they didn't actually have to ask for my permission because he was already registered. So they just told me, you'll get a phone call, have to, go through some medical questions and such later that day. So after that, and that lady who I spoke with on the phone for upwards of an hour, was just so remarkably kind. So, after that, actually, it's kind of unique how I became involved. Because he was a donor, and when his accident, his angelversary, as we call it, happened on April 30th, One Legacy has they have multiple walks throughout the year and multiple events, but their biggest one is during April for Donate Life Month, which is coming up. And so they have, I believe it's going to be their 22nd year this year, where they have a 5K walk in Azusa. It's a huge event, family event, and it fell on the same weekend as Jacob's anniversary. So I thought this would be I've been constantly trying to find ways to keep his legacy alive and honor him, speak about him. And so when I heard about this event through an email, because One Legacy keeps in contact with you, you know, pretty much forever. And so I had seen it in an email. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do a team. So we gathered a team together, and we went to the walk, and they actually also have a booth there. And so I remember Raul is his name, and I've met him a couple times since at different events. He was one of the ambassador volunteers there. And so I was talking to him after the walk. We came back through, and I was talking to him, and just asking him about how he got involved with that. And so from there, I got in contact to sign up. They have it twice a year. So I became an ambassador, had to go through an interview process and then some training and then hospital specific training so I can speak at hospitals. And so that's kind of how I got involved with him. And that's what I do now. I just finished a speaking engagement uh, what, maybe 2 weeks ago, I want to say, for one of their symposiums that they put on. So I spoke in front of like 300 medical professionals and just kind of
Hmm.
shared Jacob's
Not
story.
intimidating at all.
Not intimidating at all, no. And and got to share about him and about him and his life, not just about how he died, which is for people who grieve, I feel like is really important, is to be able to share our stories about how our children or our loved ones lived, not just about how they died. So got to share that, got to share about One Legacy and the whole process. And yeah, it was just pretty amazing. So we're going to be doing a booth at this one coming up this April for the 5K. So we'll have a
Yeah.
Gloves for Grief booth there. I don't know if you want to talk about a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I'm super grateful because you actually sponsored that booth
Hmm.
for Gloves for Grief to be there. And I think we actually, there's a lot of people when we think about partnership opportunities and places to, pop up, we call them our pop ups, different various events or other people's events. Like, I think about all the people, like, what is the connection rate of One Legacy to grief? And I
Mm,
would say 100%.
100%. Yeah.
You're thinking about people that or know about One Legacy because their loved ones, donated life and donated their life to saving someone else. And I think about just that connection and maybe they're also on the other end, they're waiting for a donation, right? And they're grieving, what the length of time, their health and stuff. So I just think it really is 100% connection for us. And so and we've have a lot of other people like yourself too that come to our events from One Legacy. So we're grateful to participate and to be able to be part of it. I think pop-ups are really important for us.
Mhm.
Possibly looking at a private event with them as well, which is something that we do. So yeah, it's so kind of getting close to wrapping up this interview. We heard your story and what that journey looked like to the mom that maybe is sitting in fresh loss after loss of her own child and doesn't know how they're going to get through the day. Like, what words of encouragement do you think you could give someone
Hmm.
that, is sitting in their fresh loss or maybe looks at you and said, I could never do that? Like what, put yourself back in that shoe. Like, what would you say to someone?
That they don't have to do that. Like, grief looks different for everybody. And what my grief journey is may not be what your grief journey is. And there's no timeline to it. So, what works for you today, say you're super fresh in your grief, and all you can do is manage to get up out of the bed and make it to the couch instead of sitting in bed all day. That's a win. Um, I When I look back, I feel like sometimes I put a little bit too much pressure on myself to get through it and to make something memorable and make this loss not be in vain. Um, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can honor your child or your loved one, your spouse, whoever it may be, just by saying their name.
Yeah.
And just be gentle. Be gentle with yourself. Like, there's going to be a lot of outside noise. There's going to be people telling you you should do this, you shouldn't do that. You're not over it by now. Um, and they don't know. So you need to listen to yourself and what you need and reach out, and you'll find the people that you're meant to go through this journey with, just like I did.
Yeah.
So and we can be that for you. We can be, the people that get it and no pressure to be over it because you're never going to be over it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really meaningful to see all that you're doing. And we're actually going to be launching
Mhm.
we've had a lot of people actually in our last interview with Sarah. She was saying, she's in fresh loss, and 3 months is a long time to wait for another event, and
Yes, it
she
is.
was hoping, although we know the amount of time, energy, and scale to do those events doesn't have to always have all those elements. So we're actually going to be launching. Do you want to talk a little bit about the support group that you're going
Sure,
to be
yes.
doing?
So, Michelle and I, another board member, we are both certified grief educators, and we are going to be launching a online grief support group. It's going to start on April 7th. It's going to be a 4-week session, hopefully repeating every 4 weeks. And it's basically going to be a place for people to come who are in their grief. It doesn't matter what kind of grief you have. It doesn't have to be the loss of a child, any kind of grief that you're experiencing. And we're going to just be a safe place for people to share their stories, and not be judged, and know that it's valid,
Yeah.
basically. So we're excited about that new step that we're taking, and hopefully we can help a lot of people.
Yeah. And so that registration is going to be on glovesforgrief.org in the events section. We're going to have links. And like you said, our goal is to have it run monthly with 4-week groups. They'll be like closed groups. So once registration is closed, it's that same group. It's not an open group where people kind of float in and
Exactly.
out. So that's going to really build community and
Mhm.
communication.
But
And
you are going to be more than welcome to come back for the next month.
for sure.
So we would like
Yeah.
to build and build upon month upon month upon month. You don't have to, but we want to have that safe space where people, like you said, aren't coming in and out every week.
Yeah. And then you're having to kind of feel like you
Hmm.
need to reshare. I've been in groups like that
Hmm.
personally. And that's hard to do.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
do, it's once you kind of get through that story, sometimes it's nice to just say, oh yeah, like I got this, I
Yeah.
know. And then the other thing we're going to be launching is we're going to be offering semi-private um, box and breathe kind of coaching, offering people. We're going to cap it at 4 people, up to 4 people at a time, training together. And I think that will also be 4-week segments and allow people to have a physical place to connect weekly, and to be able to punch out their pain, and of course we're going to keep on going with our 3-month every, quarterly events. But just really excited to offer some new opportunities and to see also like what you've been doing with the blog,
Yes.
which
So
has been really cool.
yes. So the blog, so that's going to be up. It's already up, but it's on the website, and um, hopefully 2 times a month will be a new article, um, focusing kind of what's going on in the community, what's going on in every month. So, for instance, the next one that will be coming up will be for the month of March, is the awareness is pregnancy after loss. So I'm going to actually be speaking to 2 of our fellow board members, and doing the article about that. And so every month you can look forward to at least one, if not 2 articles, about grief, about how it ties into maybe a specific loss, about what's going on with Gloves for Grief, to help the community process through those losses.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, thank you guys for watching. Thank you. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but I really am so proud of you to
Thank you.
see the way that you've just walked, in the trenches, and now you're walking alongside other people, and you're doing such a great job at it. So
Thank you.
thank you for being here, and
Thank
thank you
you.
guys for watching.
Thank you.